United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ready for roll call?
Member Christine Lattice Drake.
Here.
Member Patrice Campbell.
Here.
Chair Elizabeth Lamug.
Here.
Member John DeLulo, not present. Member Jaleesa Collins has excused absence. Member Caroline Roddy has an excused absence. James Axelson
Here.
and alternate Dawn Snell.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum. Jack Morrison sitting in tonight for Mr. Manzares, attorney for the board. And we do have, nope, we're all set. I'm sorry. We're all set.
All right. Was there any opening business? Nope. All right. If, has everyone had a chance to check over the January 14th minutes? And if so, does anyone want to make a move to? I can make a motion to approve. Second?
Motion to approve?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, just make sure you're on the mic, everyone. And Madam Chair, we have a quorum and all of the participants are voting members this evening. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yes, I'm sorry.
Do you need me to do it again?
We have move to approve? Is that?
Motion to approve,
So
please.
just call for a second.
Okay.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. All those opposed? All right. The
Passes.
minutes have been approved. And moving on to new business. Looks like we have a COA 24-00024 address 1425 11th Street.
Good evening, members. Stephanie Streeter, Senior Planner for Community Development. Tonight, I'm presenting COA 24-00024, 1425 11th Street, Major. So the background is it is located within the Central Business District 2, our CBD 2 zoning district. It was built in 1925. The proposed scope of work is a roof replacement, but specifically, they will be removing the existing roof and underlayment. They'll be repairing any damaged wood they identify once they remove those items. They'll be installing a new double-layered synthetic underlayment, and they will be installing a new drip edge and adding architectural shingles. So this is the north elevation of the home. This is the aerial view of the current roof as it is. So the reason it was triggered to be a major review is because they are changing the materials from the existing metal to shingles. This was routed to our consultant, and she found that this does still retain the historic character of the structure and within the district. It is visually compatible both with the property and the historic district as well. The materials, roof shape, and textures proposed are appropriate and consistent with what would have been built in 1925. So staff is recommending approval of COA 24-00024 based on the finding that the proposed alterations are consistent with ordinance number 2024-47, and we are requesting approval from the Historic Preservation Board. Both staff and the applicant are available for any questions.
Does the board have any questions?
Yeah, I had one question. I noticed in the paperwork we got that didn't mention which color shingles they're going to use. Do we care?
So I believe the applicant, it was supposed to be a gray color. A Georgetown gray, that was one of the options, but the color scheme, at the end of the day, we can approve what was proposed in the packet because all of the colors were consistent with the historic district.
Hey, I want to find out, I know over the years, I'm a builder.
Mr. Lulu, if you could speak into the microphone, I was just having a hard time hearing.
It's not
I don't think,
I don't think his is on.
Okay. Test?
I'm off.
There you go.
Here you
Now
go.
you're on. There you go.
Thanks. Hey, I've been a builder here since 98, and I have done a lot of historic buildings in town. And I didn't really like when they change the historic look of the metal to shingles. Yeah, I think the most important thing to consider is to maintain the historic aesthetic, of the building. Unless it's, economically not feasible if the material is not available,
So our consultant did find that the shingles would have been consistent with the 1925 structure for this building. She reviewed that the metal would not have been consistent with.
they didn't have shingles back in 1925.
Perhaps it may be the historic character. She found that they are in line with the character
The only
of the
thing that
building.
was back then was they had wood shingles, and then they did clay, tin, copper. Shingles didn't come out for years later. They had asbestos panels, but they didn't have shingles back then. So, I mean, I know on the the Secretary of Interior Standards, of rehabilitation, it does say in there that it is recommended to keep the look of the building. You know what I mean? So, unless it's not economically feasible, right? Unless it's like cost thousands and thousands more dollars or something to change it. But I mean, that's the whole reason why we're up here, is to keep the aesthetics of the historic buildings,
Well, I can let the applicant perhaps explain. She is working with Habitat for Humanity on why
Sure.
they chose the different materials.
Sure.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lucy Ghetto with Habitat for Humanity, Greater Orlando and Osceola. We're actually partnering with the city of St. Cloud to provide roof replacements for owner-occupied structures in the city, and this is one of the applications that we received to address your question about the original materials. As you can see from the shot that's up on the screen, only a small portion of the roof has that metal shingle that you did sometimes find in structures of that age. The rest of the roof was replaced with a 5E metal crimp over time. So
Sure.
that historic fabric has been altered. I will say in the surrounding neighborhood, a large majority of the homes are asphalt or architectural shingle. So if we're looking at maintaining consistency with the district, I would say that the architectural shingles are in keeping with that. I would also add that the metal shingle is about 3 to 4 times the cost of architectural
metal
shingles.
shingle, but
Metal
not
shingle.
metal corrugated roofing.
Right. And I would say I do have a historic preservation background.
Mhm.
The metal 5E metal crimp would likely not have been that original material. It would have probably been more the metal shingle
But-
that was original to the home.
But more than asphalt shingles, though. Right.
The asphalt shingles would be a change in material that is consistent with the remainder of the district, even if it was not.
Right, because
original
I'm
in the
just
home.
talking about the material. It's metal.
Mhm.
So
Yes,
we're,
sir.
we're talking about metal shingle. I know that's dated. They do have it today, but it's not economically feasible probably for that building. But what is the crimp, the regular, 5 crimp, the regular metal we use today, so.
I believe, looking right in here, I do see a 1925 ad for asbestos shingles. So I think they were probably rarer because back then they were probably the more expensive, but
They didn't have, that was like asbestos shingles. They do have asbestos shingles, but
Yeah.
very, very, very rare. Mostly in this town, we have asbestos panels, like
Mhm.
siding, but there was no asbestos roofing here. But at one time there was, but it was like very rare because it was very expensive. They would just do metal roofing.
was this the only picture you have?
This was the
So-
only overhead picture that we have. It looks like some of it may have been cropped off. We use drone photos to take overhead pictures. The main portion of the house, which is predominantly what you're seeing, one side of that roof is metal shingle. The other side is that 5E metal crimp, and then there's a shed roof in the front. That's the
Yeah,
5E metal crimp.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we're here, is to try to preserve the look of the homes. So, I'm sure shingles would be fine. I mean, I've been building for many years, and they have done it in the past. I have never done it. I always replace it with metal. It's just a little bit more, but it's not too much more. But it also would ensure the length of that historic home that we're trying to preserve. Shingles only going to last 15, 20 years. Somebody's going to have to replace it. Metal's going to last 100 years, probably. You know what I mean? So that's what I think.
I was just going to say, I know for a fact that the metal roofing actually is better for your insurance. I know when you get the,
Sure.
when you get the inspection that comes through, the metal roofing, they usually end up getting a better rate. So-
Yeah. Are you selling the home? Are you preserve, how, what do you?
No, we're actually partnering with the city of St. Cloud to provide roof replacements for owner-occupied structures in the city. The homeowner is actually here this evening. I'm sure she would like to speak as
Sure.
well, but we're really just acting as somewhat of a contractor to the city and taking in applications to qualify for that roof replacement program that's being funded by the city of St. Cloud through federal funds.
Well, the city of St. Cloud has a historic preservation board.
So the city is covering some of the cost of the roof? Is that what I'm hearing?
They're covering the entire cost of
The
the roof
entire
replacement.
cost? Okay.
That's weird.
Everyone's going, wow, I need a roof. Okay.
There is a limited pot of funding. I'll just put that on the record there.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
No, I think the homeowner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna let her finish and then have you come up. So is everybody done with
Yeah,
the
sure.
builder? Okay, so,
Yeah.
all right, we'll have the homeowner come up.
Hello, I'm the homeowner, Melissa Walters. Recently I was diagnosed with cancer, so of course, unfortunately, I have a lot of medical bills. That's why I reached out to Habitat for Humanity to help cover the roof. A couple of years ago, I had the roofer company come out and they told me it'd be about 7 to 8 grand just for shingles and over 12 grand for metal. So it is quite a bit more, and Habitat for Humanity does not pay for the metal. They won't approve metal, only shingles. So if it doesn't get approved, then I don't get a roof. So, another thing is that my neighbor right next door 2 years ago had shingles put on his, and he went from metal to shingles.
Right.
My garage has shingles. So, I mean, it would match the neighbors on the same block. So I don't the roof, as you can see, isn't really bad. They don't have any history of when that roof was physically put on, but it doesn't match. Thankfully, it's not leaking right now, but if you were to go up to it and physically look at it, it looks very brittle.
Yeah.
So I reached out to Habitat. I filled out the application. I feel like it was a blessing that they approved it. That's why we're here today. So fingers crossed. But the metal they don't cover the metal.
So yeah, I mean,
But
I would be glad
if
to help
look
you
on-
somehow with metal. You know, I mean, I have.
And insurance don't care.
Yeah.
My homeowner's insurance actually this week reached out to me and they want external and internal evaluation of my home. And the first thing they're going to come after me is for a roof. And then they're
Yeah.
going to drop me. And this is my third, or actually I guess it's been longer now, going into my 4th, 5th year living there now. And I've been trying to, I spent money, updated the electrical because I know that was an issue. And so I've been trying to every year update something, which
What's
is
the-
hard because
Excuse me, sorry.
Yeah.
What's the difference in the price of what is Habitat paying and what do you have to pay, if I can ask?
so Habitat for Humanity, they pay for shingles, everything, the whole cost of the roof.
100%?
100%. Like I said, I had a quote a couple of years ago from a roofing company and it was a big jump. So, and then my insurance company told me it didn't matter if it was shingles or if it was metal. It was the same concept. In a few years, they nag you in about 20 years to replace it anyway. So yes, it does not leak. It lasts longer. But in
longer,
the
yeah.
long run, our homeowners insurance in Florida, they don't really care. I have Citizens because, I have a really old home. So that's the only homeowners. And I already pay a lot for homeowners.
Well, to me, the problem is that the homes that are in the historic district, are going to face this issue. Now we're going to have an issue because all the homes the metal is going to come off of them and they're going to be shingles. So
Well,
it's
that's
up to the
because-
board.
I'm sorry, but that's just because homeowners insurance is so expensive here.
Right.
It jumps up hundreds, thousands of dollars every year. It's a
But-
lot.
But we can't,
So
and I understand that, but we have to kind of have a baseline that we have to go by.
mhm.
And,
Exactly,
well,
yes.
my
Yeah.
neighbor,
We
they
have
just
to-
got
Yeah.
approved a couple of years ago and they went from metal to shingles. And my
Right.
garage went from a year ago, went from metal to shingles.
Right. But there's
And
a,
it was all approved. So it won't match the other structure on my property.
right. But if we keep doing that, then things are going to just continue to change. Then if we want square windows, somebody comes in, hey, I want a round window. I want to change my siding to stucco. So,
I was here not long ago
Mhm.
about that as well,
Right.
and they approved the roof on my garage.
Right.
So, I mean, we've been trying to
And
make, and
and
you know,
it's
they just
nothing
sent me an
against you.
email. The city sent me an email today. They want to give me a grant to fix my yard, but I don't.
And it's nothing
It's-
against you at all. I mean, I would help you. Believe me, I could.
Well, you
Yeah.
can if you'd like. I mean, I have cancer. I just fought
Right.
cancer and have thousands of dollars worth of bills for that,
It's just that we're here trying to preserve a certain location in the city. So
And another
Yeah.
thing is when you buy a home in the historic district, they don't tell you, guess what? Now you're facing this. Now it's like facing an HOA. I didn't buy a home in an HOA for that. I didn't know that in the historic district. It was a battle to
I
do
know.
everything.
Right, that's where the realtor needs to start
A
exactly.
realtor's never
stepping
going to tell
out
somebody
there.
that.
and
That's
let
the
people know,
problem,
Because
yeah.
it is a different breed.
Yeah, and
when
I'm,
you're
I'm
buying
sorry
an
for that too.
historic. Yeah,
I am
I'm
sorry for that because it is a problem. So we have a conflict.
Metal is not that pretty, honestly. It's not. I mean, those are metal shingles, and that's really, really old.
I have a home at 1106 Oregon. I'm restoring it for 5 years now,
Mhm.
and it was built in 1925. But it's a metal roof. But I just it's beautiful.
So what am I supposed to do if you don't approve it? Like, no, but I don't have the finances to spend $12,000 to
Yeah, but-
$15,000 for a metal roof, and we're going into rainy season, and I mean, it's really old.
Well,
If I could, Madam Chair, and
Yes.
just for the committee, it's completely appropriate to have some interaction with the property owner and the staff and the applicant. But this is, you should take all the feedback you wish to get from the public and from the applicant and homeowner. But it's not a conversation, or they're not here to answer questions or give advice or seemingly give advice. Definitely take your feedback, certainly, any bit that you wish to give. So I just want to kind of stream it that way.
okay.
Because you're sitting here as a deciding body on something. So you gather the information you need, and then we're going to need to see those criteria that you all will need to rely upon in making your decision as a body going forward with the certificate. Okay?
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
to them on it? The photo that's up there, the building on the side, is that your garage?
It's like a plastic
A shed? Do you have a photo of your garage where you were approved for shingles?
I don't have one on me right now. I don't think. Do you have
Okay.
a photo of the roof?
The difficulty is going to be that whatever's submitted is going to have to become part of the
Okay.
packet. So we're not going to be able to accept that from a phone unless you can transmit it somewhere where it can be illuminated and made part of the packet.
Oh, and they're saying the projector.
Okay, if we can get it to the projector, that's wonderful.
I'm just curious.
Technology.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just curious, because I mean,
Yeah.
the house is already pieced out.
No, I
That's
understand.
kinda-
It's
that's kinda what
understandable.
I was
Just any
thinking.
piece of evidence that the board's going to rely upon has to become part of the file.
But you said you came before the board and it was approved, the shingle, the board approved it or the city approved it? Okay.
Was this the one? Okay, I'm going to go back. Was this one where the siding was changed to? I remember this, and I think you were at this one.
I'm trying to remember.
That was, it
She
was more,
looks familiar.
yeah, that's the only thing that looks familiar is you. This was
Is this
one.
not working?
I can't, yeah, there we go. I was trying to pick you up.
I should be, yeah.
The city rats coming inside the
No, yeah.
So we fixed the outside of the structure, and we got the termite people out there to take care of that, and yes, that was all approved. Oh,
Yeah, I think the thing with the roofing on the garage was because it was a separate, it wasn't part of the historical home.
It was
I
added later?
believe. I mean,
There was, they can't get the garage. They can't get. So
Okay.
the garage was there. It was.
I was always there.
It was original to the 1920s, 25?
Ma'am, you have to get,
Okay.
you have to, ma'am, you have to be on the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was the,
There's no record of anything on the property, so I don't know exactly. There's no record of the roof. It's been patched. It's old, brittle. So the garage, there was no record of when it was
just-
built,
yeah.
nothing. So
Can I ask a question? How many other homes in the area still have a metal roof?
On that block, I'm not sure. I didn't go around looking at
Well, yeah, but-
everybody's roof. Oh, sorry.
We wouldn't have that inventory unless we physically went around and looked at all of the homes, or they would come in for
Was part,
building permits or historic preservation.
but I assume that's kind of what Christine was getting
Yes.
at, was that that's why she was saying that it was okay, is because I'm guessing
Yeah.
the majority must be shingles.
Correct.
But when do we stop? You know?
That's a
But
great question.
that's, I'll have to ask
Well, I
on
think-
that.
I
If
think
that's
it-
a question for another
Yeah,
time, that's more of a political than a,
Yeah, I think that it's best that the board, within the context of the presentation, focus on the property at issue.
Yeah.
I know it's tempting to look down in different regions, down the street, et cetera, but, you have to take the case as it's presented within the confines of the Land Development Code, which you're all required to do.
So, Mr. DeLulu, so I have
Yes.
to, I mean, I agree with you. I think that there's a certain level of like, okay, there's got to be enough and you've got to keep with the consistency.
Sure.
And the only reason I think that on this particular one, I wanted to see the garage was because number one, are the shingles you're looking at getting matching what's already on your garage?
Yes.
We're not going to have three different, because I'm
No.
looking right now at three different sets of roof right here.
Okay.
Like your shed is one, the one side's
Right.
another. So that's why I want to make sure, like if your shed, or I'm assuming that's a shed, yes?
It's a little tiny plastic shed.
it's,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
those.
Okay,
It's like
that's
a
a
pop-up
plastic shed.
shed.
Okay.
It's not a permanent structure.
Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, if it's cohesive and consistent, that's a little bit better then.
Oh, yeah, I would not want
Yeah.
something that didn't match. I looked at all of their options and I
Yeah.
made sure it
Yeah.
matched, so.
But I do agree with Mr. DeLulo on that. Like, there's a point in time where we have to say, okay, if we're going to be historic, we got to stay historic. You know what I mean? So.
But then it won't, I mean, like, it won't get done and it won't match my garage.
I get
either,
And
so-
yeah, so for her, is there any other comments relating to questions about this actual property?
I guess one question I have is, it was said that the city was paying for the roof, but then it was also said that Habitat.
Habitat, I applied through Habitat for Humanity.
Okay, so, and you get the
I-
funds through the city, is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yes, we get the funds through the city. It's specifically through the federal government CDBG program, Community
Okay.
Development Block Grant,
Okay.
that the city of Kissimmee receives, or I'm sorry, the city of St. Cloud receives an allocation each year of that funding to serve low-income families throughout the community. So this funding is from that. The reason that the homeowner stated that we would not replace the roof is, honestly, we do not typically do metal roofs, and the sole reason is the cost, because we have to serve as many people as humanly possible. And if we spend 3 times the cost of a shingle roof on a metal roof, that's fewer people we can serve. So if the board determines today that we need to stay with a metal roof, we would simply need to consult with the city of St. Cloud to see what that next step would be. But that's the reasoning behind that. We receive all of the applicants, approve them through our process. We work with a roofer, we pay that bill, and then we work with the city of St. Cloud for reimbursement. So that's kind of how that cake is baked.
Right.
So then it sounds like if the city of St. Cloud was willing to give the money, it would be feasible to get a metal roof.
Yeah, it's simply if the funding is available.
Right. And it should be, the city should, allocate money for the historic district,
A certain
at
amount.
least for metal roofing. So you can have a free, metal roof.
My understanding is I have it
Yep.
next month and then the same year and the funding is gone
Okay.
as well, so.
I was actually going to just ask that. Okay.
Good evening, Tisha Manning, zoning manager for community development. The CDBG funds are allocated through economic development. They're allocated for a certain amount of time and a certain amount of funds per each person they anticipate serving. So Antoinette is not here. She is the director of that department, and she could give you, of course, better details than I can. But if the funds that are allocated to serve X amount of people is exceeded by her going over and needing a metal roof, it is quite possible she may be denied for the funding.
Before we make a decision, can we find that out? Can we find out a little bit more information, or is there people within the city that will do more of a benevolence type roof and come alongside the city and allow the metal roof to go up. So you have a roofer who has come alongside the city that has offered to fill in that gap of what you guys don't want to or cannot
Fund, yeah.
fund.
The city has partnered with Habitat, and that is their partnership. Again, I can't give you the intricacies of how they got into their partnership with Habitat for these roofs, but that's who they've partnered with.
Could-
Habitat is stating that they, are trying to serve as many people as possible. If you want to continue this item, then the applicant will have to come back to the next meeting. We can do some more research and give you some more answers.
I was going to ask, does
Could we
she have
have-
enough time for that?
I believe, I don't know when the grant closed. It could be possible that, I'm sorry, when does your?
Ma'am, you,
Do you,
You have to
ma'am,
turn
you
the
gotta
mic.
to come up to the microphone.
do you got, Tisha, do you have estimates? We don't even know what the difference is.
Right.
I mean, we should know that,
That's
you know?
fair.
So they said I had until March. After that, I would not be
Did
approved.
the first part of March, the end of March, did they give you
They
any?
didn't give me a date. They said they have an exact year, I believe, and then that's it.
So it was
That
granted a
funding-
year ago?
Yes, this started a year because of the of living in the historic district and everything like that. And I submitted all of my paperwork. You have to submit all your financial
Wow.
paperwork in May.
Right.
And because of the historic district, it takes a very long time to get approved for anything.
Wow.
So
Wow,
it
that's
has
a
to
long
go
time.
against the board meetings. Sometimes they get postponed.
What,
That's what I was told, and then I don't.
Yeah.
It's almost been a year. So I'm not in charge of that, but I know that they said come March, then it would be it, and that would be next month. So
yeah, because we've had meetings and we would have loved to have
Well,
heard
there-
from
for
you.
some reason
Wasn't
it was.
postponed.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't,
I don't know what.
Yeah.
But and I know personally when I file with the city, it takes a while. Anything
Okay.
like I put a small section of fencing up just for my dogs, a really small section, and that took a long time to get it approved and everything like that. But I know it does take a while. I'm going through Habitat, so they have a process as well.
Mhm.
They have to go through so many hands, I guess. I don't know, but March will be a year.
So then do you actually have an estimate for what your roof is now? Like the roof you're planning to put up with the gray shingles? You have that estimate?
I don't get that
You do?
information.
Do you have the numbers?
I do not have a comparison. I have the cost of the proposed roof shingle was about $6,700
Yeah,
to
I
replace
think
your
we would
roof.
need at least a comparison because as a builder, I would like to see if it's in line
Mhm.
with, because we do metal roofing and shingles.
Again, I don't know if having the comparison would still have really, his name.
I had a comparison a few years ago, and it was 12,000
It was 12.
for metal.
What's the square footage of the house?
It's 820.
That's, wow,
That's a lot.
that's exuberant.
Yeah, that's just
And this
crazy.
was
Yeah.
just a few years ago. And that's why I didn't do it, because I figured the electrical was old and that was more of a fire hazard. So I attacked that first, was the electrical. I had an old box.
Yeah.
I did that. I had old like paper wiring, the old wiring in the house. I attacked that first over the roof. And then I ended up getting breast cancer, and I've been battling that for a couple of years. So that's why the roof was put on hold, because the electrical came first. But yeah, it was, I think they quoted, I have it in an email, but I can't put it on the projector for you.
And if it
The
was,
quotes.
probably wouldn't be any accurate anymore anyways because
Yes.
of how
and
much
this
things
This
change.
was 3 years ago, I think, 2 or 3 years ago.
My thought is, and let me know if I'm wrong, if I don't know that we can really, the price would matter in the scheme of things. It's not up to us to decide based on the price of something, whether we are going to allow a homeowner.
But I understand that, but the price is determining if we use metal or shingles.
But
I
it
don't
shouldn't
know.
The Habitat wasn't going
If-
to cover
if-
the metal.
If I
But they're not
could,
paying for
But
it.
she said
It-
that it
The
was,
city's paying for it.
if I could,
Right.
the land development code, the factors that you're to consider in context of the application are fairly broad, and they should be in your packet. There's
Yes.
about 10 emboldened subject matter items to consider. The-
We
the
don't
co-
have a packet.
the co-
Well, right, but we don't
Okay,
have.
well, then that should be, well, we're going to have to include it in the present. Is it in the PowerPoint?
But
Okay, I'll read through them for you. Those email packets have what factors you need to consider. That's what the Land Development Code asks that you consider. These are broad topics, if you will. The issue of the cost and such is not specifically identified as a factor. Obviously, it's relevant to the case, but the factors to be considered by the board are, number one, a property shall be used for its historic purpose or placed in a new use that requires minimal change to the defining characteristics of the building and its site environment. The response from respondents currently, this is from staff, there's no new use being proposed at this location. Existing use shall remain. Number two, the historic character of a property shall be retained and preserved. The removal of historic materials or alteration of features and spaces that characterize a property shall be avoided. Answer from staff, the proposed alterations retain the historic character of the structure and is visually compatible with the architectural style of the property and the district. Number three, each property shall be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. Changes that create a false sense of historical development, such as adding conjectural features or architectural elements from other buildings, shall not be undertaken. Staff comment, the proposed alterations do not introduce conjectural features or create a false sense of historic development. 4, most properties change over time. Those changes that have acquired historic significance in their own right shall be retained and preserved. Comment, no known changes to the property have acquired their own historical significance. 5, distinctive features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a property shall be preserved. Comment, the proposed architectural shingles are appropriate and consistent with the roof shapes, materials, and texture commonly used within the district. Furthermore, the project does not involve the removal of distinctive materials that characterize the building. 6, deteriorated historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced. Where the severity of deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature, the new feature shall match the old in design, color, texture, and other visual qualities, and where possible, materials. Replacement of missing features shall be substantiated by documentary, physical, or pictorial evidence. Comment, at the time of roof removal, any damaged wood will be repaired rather than replaced. The materials being replaced do not contribute to any distinctive features of the structure. Number 7, chemical or physical treatments such as sandblasting that cause damage to historic materials shall not be used. The surface cleaning of structures, if appropriate, shall be undertaken using the gentlest means possible. Comment, no chemical or physical treatments are being proposed at this time. 8, significant archaeological resources affected by a project shall be protected and preserved. If such resources must be disturbed, mitigation measures shall be undertaken. Comment, no significant archaeological resources have been noted at this site. 9, new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction on the same parcel of land shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. Comment, the proposed alterations do not destroy historic materials or introduce conjectural features and meets the requirement for size, scale, and massing. 10, this is the last component. New additions or related new construction on a parcel of land adjacent to a historic property shall be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property and its environment would be unimpaired. Comment, the proposed scope of work does not affect neighboring historic properties. That's the report, and those are the comments. Those are the factors the board needs to consider and come into its decision. So, I understand the relevance of the discussion of the finances, but those are not specified, at least to my reading, in those criteria per se.
Well, component number
I would-
9 would be the one I think would apply the most, which would be, does it change the structure of the historic preservation?
see, I was looking at number 6.
Okay.
Mhm.
Can you reread number 6 again?
Number 6 is deteriorated historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced.
Okay.
Where the severity of deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature, the new feature shall match the old in design, color, texture, and other other visual qualities, and where possible, materials. Replacement of missing features shall be substantiated by documentary, physical, or pictorial evidence. That's number 6. Did you want to hear number 9?
No,
No.
I mean, I remember number 9 unless anybody else wanted to hear it.
No.
I mean, I think I mean, for me, the only thing that I guess for this one, and I understand what Mr. Lulu was saying, and I agree, there's got to be a time where we're like, okay, we got to stick to a certain pattern. I mean, if the garage is one thing and now the house is another, I mean, maybe this would be the only one I could see possibly making an exception on.
Yeah. Yeah. And the only reason I was talking about the price difference is because it says in the Secretary of Interior's, the Standards of Rehabilitation, it does say that under roofing, that it does say that, if using the same kind of material is not economically feasible, it says then you can consider a compatible substitute. And what that is kind of broad, I guess.
Yeah, that is a hard one to.
But it does say that that's what we're supposed to follow under our ordinance in St. Cloud.
Mhm.
That's here that the staff approved on.
I just feel like as a board, it's a tough decision because
Mhm.
my heart hurts for you because you're in a situation where you need help.
Exactly. Yeah.
And however, we're appointed to make decisions to hold the integrity of the historical aspects of our city. And where the city has a budget that they've allocated. So we're kind of like between a rock and a hard place. Their budget and your budget,
Yeah.
and then we're making the decision. And that's tough.
I mean, I don't know how the paperwork works, but the city saw where my home is at. So,
Right.
I mean, but of course, there's no time to go back and battle that as well, and then my homeowners on the 21st, they're coming out to look at my property and they're going to drop my insurance or skyrocket it. I have no idea. But I mean, this is Florida, it's a battle.
Well, the city allocating the funds and knowing where your address is, they're not knowing necessarily that you're going to go with this particular situation. They're
Right.
allocating you a certain amount of money, which is
Right.
great.
But I guess they don't realize in the historic district, it could be different, I guess, I don't know.
True. Yeah.
Well,
That's right. Yeah.
from what I gather, they're not allocating her anything. It's
They
just
did-
strictly that they will replace the roof.
Right. The roof.
Right.
Which is, yeah, if she could, that would be almost better because then you could possibly make up the difference.
Right.
But
I
it's-
don't believe
it's-
that's an option from what I'm hearing.
Correct.
So,
It would be quite a bit of a difference.
Is if the money, if you have enough money and say that you could find it cheaper, a metal roof, could you do a metal roof if you found it cheaper?
I think the big question would be is if there's funding available through the city to cover the cost. Obviously, if the applicant was requesting a metal roof, that is typically something that we would respectfully say no to because of the cost and number of people we have to serve. If a city board is requiring replacement of metal to maintain integrity with the historic district, that would be a conversation that we would go back with our partners in the city and discuss. And then, of course, we always look for the most viable source, economically viable source. We are held to certain procurement requirements because this is federal funding. So we've already gone through a bidding process. We have a roofer that's been awarded that contract. But of course,
That's
they
why,
would be sourcing materials as economically as possible. So a lot of this is just if the board does decide to move forward with requiring metal today, that's additional conversations we would have
I
to have.
have a question that I probably already know the answer to, but you don't have any historic pictures of the home, do you? Since we really don't know what was historically on this house.
No, just from
It's-
my professional experience, it could have been arranged, it could have been wood shingles
These
originally. It was
these metal
1925.
shingles, these are 1925. I had them on my house.
Those,
They're
the
from
metal
Ireland.
shingles on the, I don't know if
Yeah.
it's on the left side of your screen or if it's just on mine.
But that is what we're saying is like definitely not economically feasible.
Metal shingles are
Possibly
much more
the,
expensive.
yeah.
The metal
core,
shingles, probably
yeah.
not. Yeah, probably not. But the regular metal, yeah, that they do everywhere. Yeah.
I think my question is the 5E metal crimp is not necessarily from this time period.
That's.
If we're looking at a 1925 house,
I tend to
that
be in
metal
agreement with
crimp
that.
kind of came in a little bit later. So I understand the desire to be historically, accurate and sensitive to the district, but that metal crimp would have been introduced at a later time. It's not necessarily
But
original to the house.
it's been 100 years almost.
The house has been there
Literally.
Yeah.
she's held up quite nicely.
But the crimp, it's been out like 80, 90 years.
Good evening, Tisha Manning, zoning manager again. I would also like to remind the board that any major reviews that come before you are reviewed by the city's historic preservation consultant. And the recommendations that are brought before you have been reviewed by the consultant. So her recommendation is that the shingles is also incompatible with the district and could also have been used in that time period as well. So just remember that it is not just staff. We have hired a professional consultant that has also reviewed this property.
I can say, I appreciate that and I respect that. But we also are appointed to the board with a task to do what we feel is by the rules of this. And so while I appreciate that and I accept that the staff did their research and we have a consultant as well, I will take that into consideration too, but we are also able to make our own decisions as well. And that's why we're asking the questions we're asking to come to an educated decision.
No, I understand that,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to remind new
Yep,
members of the
I'm
board
aware.
that there is a consultant that also
Thank
reviews
you.
this.
I have a question. You guys hear me okay?
No, you're still.
What about now?
Hit the button.
It's lit up. It's on.
Try
tap.
turn off, turn back on maybe.
Hello? Hi,
Yep.
Yes.
There you
Okay.
go.
So is there a way to be able to find the information that the board is needing, not jeopardize all the hard work she's already put in? Because her deadline is imminent, like March.
Mhm.
It's like very little time to do administrative things.
Mhm.
Is there a way to not jeopardize that deadline and get the information that is being required?
Well, if I, just before the applicant responds, if the question is leading to whether or not the board is inclined to seek a continuance, that's the discretion of the applicant. It's not the discretion of the board. That's in the court of the applicant. So, because they brought it here for you to make a determination. I'm sure that they're going to want your support, and if that means they need more time, so I don't know. That's going to have to be on the record, left up to them.
Correct.
I do want to just remind the board, you don't have your packets, I guess.
Yeah, they decided to stop printing them up for us, so
Okay, well,
we gotta.
my understanding is they were emailed. I don't know, but you're.
They are. They're
yeah.
emailed.
Yeah, they're
The-
emailed.
The 10 factors are to be considered. And if the board's going to take a position that any of them have not been met for whatever reason, it's going to have to be identified as part of the board's action tonight. So we're going to spend a little time going through this if there's some concerns about, not approving the application. The staff in their report, which I guess is part of the email content, staff recommendation, which I know was presented orally, was that staff's recommending approval of the following scope of work: removal of the existing roof and underlayment, repair of any damaged wood, installation of new double-layered synthetic underlayment, installation of new drip edge, installation of architectural shingles. Okay, so that's staff recommendation coupled with the application. And so I just wanted to make that clear going forward. I'm sorry to interrupt your
It's
question.
okay. Yeah, that's okay. I'm just wondering, in reference to an amicable option, is there any leeway for that?
The deadline was originally based on the city's deadline for us to spend that funding. When we were informed that it was in historic district and we would have to go through this review, I did have that conversation with city staff and let them know that we would likely miss our deadline because of this request. And they indicated that they could request an extension through the city council. I know that is pending. It is not gone before the city council. So I can't say for certain, yeah, absolutely, we can extend
I
it.
understand.
We'll do everything we can. It's not a deadline of ours. It's simply a deadline for the funding. But staff's opinion was that there might be some leeway, but it is ultimately up to the city council for that.
I understand. And my question for the board is, in terms of, wisely using the counsel of a professional in this, what specifically is still unanswered based on the professional's opinion, recommendation, that these materials could have been used in that time?
Is that I mean, I didn't.
The whole board, but I
Basically,
mean,
if there's any further,
yeah, what concretely
Okay.
is unanswered at this point? Because I know
So
that
like if the
one thing,
material was, well, definitely this part of the roof was there since 1925.
Mhm.
They replaced it with some, some other metal that we use today, which they have used 80 years ago on barns and stuff and houses for people who weren't, they didn't have a lot of money. The shingles that you see on the part of the roof, people had to have some money to put that on. The other side is the people who didn't have that much money.
so is there a possibility that the people of that time were doing shingles that they couldn't afford the metal?
They didn't have shingles back in 1925.
I mean, there's also a professional saying that they could have been, so I don't want to
There
go
hasn't-
against
There
that.
hasn't been.
Osceola County Historical Society, and we have original homes from 18 and 1900s that are shingled. So I don't know, the difference of maybe like the area, but just for that, they
Yeah,
they do.
I didn't
they
see,
do have-
maybe because maybe the first homes were asbestos shingles, maybe, but
Yeah,
I
don't
haven't
know
seen
the
any in 30-something years since I've been
actual
doing
material.
it.
And I don't mean in any way, shape, or form to doubt your opinion and your representation,
Sure.
but I do appreciate training in that area, and she did go to school for that. So,
Well, it just says, like if you look at the ordinance that we're looking at the city, right? It says to, they're referring to the Secretary of the Interior Standards and Rehabilitation, which we go by. And in there, it says it has a
correct,
section.
I heard you earlier.
Yeah. So
Crystal,
that's
it's still in my
right,
working memory.
Right.
so the problem is, if you want to go strictly by that, they would have to do metal shingles. So either we are going to suggest that she has
Or-
to have metal shingles.
Well, it doesn't have to
or-
be specifically the exact same. It could-
Well, then I guess that's where I'm kind of going back to agreeing with our consultant that if we're not going to say they have to replace what was originally there, then yes, doing what is around the surrounding house, I think is fair.
It just says compatible,
Mhm.
Madam Chair, if I could just suggest to the board is to maybe extract whatever else you wish from the applicant or the property owner or staff, open for public comment, because this is a discussion clearly that needs to take place once you've closed the public portion of the hearing, and then you can,
Okay.
Oh,
s-
okay. I
engage.
see what you're saying. Yes.
so I would, if there's anything more that the
Is there
board wishes.
anything, any more questions for the public?
No, that's fine. I'm good.
Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead and close for public comment, and we can continue our discussion.
There's no public comment?
Oh, do we ask for public?
Yeah, we
Oh,
should
sorry.
ask. We should
Sorry.
ask. that. It's okay.
Oops.
It is my first day doing
okay.
the chair, so
Do a
give
good
me,
job.
yeah.
They introduced asphalt shingles in 1893.
Can you come closer
Yeah.
to the microphone? I'm sorry.
They introduced asphalt shingles in 1893. So
Sir, can you state your name and address, please?
Ford Fleetus, 1425 11th Street.
And name?
Ford Fleetus.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Are you with the property owner? Are you?
Yes.
Okay, okay, I'm sorry. Because if you're not, you need to fill out
Oh, no,
a statement.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
our guest.
I guess one of my thoughts are the fact that when people look at the shingles as opposed to even a metal roof, not the shingle metal, people are just going to see metal and shingles. They're not going to see, oh, this is a shingle metal or they're going to see metal or shingle. And so as a board, when people come into the historic district and they see that the decision was made for shingles, they're not, you know what I'm saying? Or if it's metal, they're not going to go, oh yeah, that metal wasn't that kind of metal back in 1925. They're going to look at, oh, it's an older home, it's got a metal roof.
Mhm.
Or it's a
Yeah.
older home and it's got
Well,
a shingle roof.
At the time that they built that house, asphalt shingles were available.
Right.
Yeah,
But
they
you know,
were, but those if I'm not mistaken, those were like really expensive homes. Like weren't really common at all.
Well,
Yeah.
it was very uncommon to even have a home back then.
Wow.
I mean,
So,
I'm
gonna-
just struggling on which direction to go because I
Yeah.
don't want to set a
Do-
precedence. But yet then again, I don't
Yeah.
want to have you keep minging and yanging trying to get a
Do you
Sure,
decision.
have
yeah.
any more comments
Yeah.
from the public?
I agree.
Exactly.
Keep-
Thank
yeah,
you, yes.
Carrying on. Is there anything else from the public? Did you have any more
No.
questions, comments? Okay.
Well, this is for public comment now, not from the applicant. That
Oh,
this-
okay.
From the public. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to be heard on this matter? Please come forward. Seeing none, okay. So then you can follow up with, if you wish, with the owner, staff, or applicant, and then you can close the public. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So we'll close the, from public. Is there any more comments from the staff and the applicant? Now you come on.
This is just a reiteration that apparently the Historic Preservation Board has already approved the replacement of her garage to shingles. So when we're discussing setting a precedent, that was already set on this property. So maintaining the metal on the main structure would then be inconsistent with the approval that was already made to switch to shingle. But that's the only comment I have.
I'm sorry, is the garage connected to the house?
No.
No.
Was it original to the, because our home has an original garage, 27. Was that original to the 25 house, 1925 house?
there's no way to know.
Okay,
there-
that's
it was
probably why the board
probably-
made that decision.
It was probably within, I don't know, 60 years. It was definitely materials, but it has asphalt shingles on it too. And that I guess they approved that based upon the neighbors down the street originally.
Well, I would like to look at I'll go home and look at my notes and stuff, but I'm thinking
Yeah,
it's
that structure
because,
is 100% permitted and CO's done, everything's done.
Right.
Right.
Do we have any more comments from the applicant or staff? Okay. So now we will,
Close the public hearing,
all right, so closing the public commenting
and now
and
discussion,
opening for the
or
board.
continuing discussion.
Yeah, continue.
If you guys don't mind, I don't mind speaking first, but this is where I stand on that. I agree with Mr. Delulu. I think going forward, there are certain things that if it's not already in that situation, the one thing that is kind of, I think Patricia and I are probably on the same page. If the structure that's next to it, which is the garage, whether it's freestanding or attached, it's already got shingles on it and that's been approved and that's come in front of the board and you said you remembered it.
Yes.
And you remembered it, then I do believe that has come in front of the board. I don't doubt that. At this point in time, I would rather see a consistency than to see mismatch. I think that's where I stand on that one. But going forward, I absolutely agree that we have something, an integrity we have to uphold. That's where I stand.
Let me make sure I understood you. What I heard was, since there's already been the approval on the garage, continue that, and then moving forward, let's pay more attention to these.
Correct.
items.
And I think that's why I asked them if the shingles they're choosing for the home match the garage, because to me, that would be a no-brainer. That would have to be. I mean, you can't have like orange shingles and purple polka dotted, on the other one. I definitely think they should be consistent and solid the whole way through. That's my opinion.
I understand.
right, and as she said, moving forward, we have to continue to set a precedence within the historic, area so that we, can do what we've been appointed to do and do it as well as possible.
Madam Chair, if I could at this time, just remind that everybody is a voting member tonight. So
When it comes
once
time.
any motion has been seconded and ready for the vote, you're all voting and on the mic, so we can all hear you. Thank you.
So anyone would like to make a motion to approve or deny?
And remember, the motion, I apologize, it's got to be based on the 10 criteria that we spoke about. If anybody wants a review of anything or question, I've got it right here.
Which was the one that was the consistency and the cohesiveness? Was that number 9?
No, that was 6, I think.
I thought 6 was repairing with what was matching.
Number 6 is, and I want to go through this again, so deteriorated Historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced where the severity of deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature. The new feature shall match the old in design, color, texture, and other visual qualities and, where possible, materials. Replacement of missing features shall be substantiated by documentary, physical, or pictorial evidence. That's the one you were asking about?
That was 6, correct?
That was number 6,
Okay,
correct.
so that's why I was saying I think number 9 is the one.
Number 9
Yeah.
is new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction on same parcel of land shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. Okay? So these are the 10 factors to consider when in support of whatever motion you're making. Thank you.
So based on a clearer reading of number 6 and number 9, I would like to make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness application as presented based on the Secretary of Interior standards for treatment of historic properties. And having heard everybody's contribution, I don't believe number 6 and number 9 go against that writing.
Okay. I'll second the motion if that's okay. Do I need to go into the whole?
No?
Okay, so
So that motion is now right for a vote. If you wish to vote, you can have discussion, but it's right now to be voted upon because it's been seconded.
Is there any more comment to be made before we make a vote? Okay, so all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Any opposed?
So passes 7-0.
All right, so passes 7-0. And you're good. All right.
Okay, good luck with your new roof.
Yep, you're good to go.
All right. So next on the agenda is any public comments regarding anything else today? Yes. Step on up.
My name's Tony Campbell, and I attend most of these meetings. And if, I guess a recommendation would be that we do have a consultant and possibly do a workshop, because this meeting tonight, there was so much here and there and here and there, and the consultant is a professional. So I would just recommend to the staff or the board to do a workshop to cover the stuff that our attorney covered, so that they will understand. And it's the next people that come up and want to get something changed to their house or addition to their house, it will not be so crazy, because tonight, to me, sitting here, like I said, I've attended all these, and tonight was a little bit crazy. So, and that's my recommendation to the staff, is to have the consultant come and do a workshop for
The board.
For the
I
board.
agree.
I don't think
We have a
it's
lot
fair.
of newer members and it's,
Yeah.
I know,
Sure.
yeah, would
Yeah,
definitely.
okay. That's just my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Questions? Okay, we will move on to individual board comments. Would anybody like to make any comments, bring any new information?
I looked in my email and I did not see the components that were supposed to be emailed to them. I only had the bylaws attached to mine that I can see. So now it's a possibility my firewall didn't allow certain things to come through, because initially when you and I were emailing back and forth, we had a lot of problems. So if maybe there's a way I can either get you to email those to me separately, please, so I have them going forward, or if we can have them printed out, which would be readily accessible for us, that would be extremely helpful. Please and thank you.
I have a question. I know we voted for a new chair. Are we going to vote for a new co-chair or vice chair?
It was not on the agenda, and I was going to bring it up, but there was some of the folks arrived later, and so at the time, I didn't think that it was necessary. But now that it's essentially everyone's here, save for Ms. Collins, as a housekeeping matter before closing for tonight, if you'd like to take action to appoint a vice chair, you could do so right now. You would call for a motion. The motions are voted upon in the order which they're seconded. So if there's more than one candidate, and you can fill that chair tonight if you wish, yes.
Okay, so I would make a motion
You'd call for motions. I'm
I
sorry.
call for a motion to
Nominate a vice chair.
nominate a vice chair.
I second that.
Well,
Okay.
she's calling for a nomination, so it's not a
So-
motion. She's calling for for nominations
I know who you're gonna.
for vice chair.
Can we find out how long everybody's been on the board? Because I know I'm new, so I'd like to, I know Miss Patrice has been on there for a while, and apparently Miss Elizabeth has as well.
Right. That you actually kind of read my thoughts. I nominate Patrice Campbell.
I was actually going to recommend that, but I wanted to make sure I wasn't cutting anybody else off at the knee.
Yeah.
So there's a motion for Ms. Campbell.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, and there's a second.
All right, all those in favor, or wait, no, would anybody else like to nominate anyone else? No, okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Ms. Collins, are you on the microphone? Or did you-
Thank you.
Is that an aye? You have to vote.
I have to vote?
You have to vote.
I.
Okay, there we are. So passes 7-0. Congratulations.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, there you are. Yep, it's a rule. You have to vote. So unless you have a
I do have
conflict, you don't.
another comment, if we, or question maybe. One thing I've noticed that would always be really helpful for us at the board is if we have some historical photos. I don't know how much maybe the staff is trying to get those and they're just not available. I know for my job, when I do phase ones, we can get at least pretty old aerial photos
Sure, yeah.
of towns. And I'm wondering if that's something we can start making part of the CRA application, is to make sure if they're available to give it, because that's going to help us a lot.
Great.
Right.
That's a great.
Yeah, that would facilitate education along with what Mr. Campbell recommended. And it doesn't have to be an owner's way of delivery, just maybe load it up to Dropbox, or maybe Christine, what books did she study that gave her the opinion that she had?
And I want to make something very clear, by the way, and I want you to understand what I was trying to say to you is I understand she's a consultant and I take that into consideration and respect completely. What I mean by that is I know that every district has different things in their historic. I'm from the city of Philadelphia, which obviously we know is the first capital of the US. We're a very old city. There are certain parts of our city that have certain historic district things that are steadfast, that are not acknowledged in other parts of the city. And with that, the reason I say that is I understand she's a consultant to that, but the city of St. Cloud has its own unique past. And we have certain things here that other cities may not have seen. And while she may have studied historic things in other parts of our town or even our county, for instance, St. Cloud and its downtown little area it's actually really quite cool and unique in its history. And it's definitely something that I agree with you, Elizabeth, that I think the photos going forward would be amazing, because when you see them,
Sure.
they're really cool, very neat. So,
And a photo can resolve a lot of questions
Agreed.
and disputes easily.
Yeah, I mean, if we're trying to, preserve this town, I mean, you could see by photos, it's metal roofing and
Yep.
siding, and, in other areas, I grew up in New York. I've been building for 30 years, and it's a little different there, brick and stuff. But
The other thing I would like to, am I on? Okay. The other thing I'd like to request is there's a consistency with having our workshops canceled. And I
Oh,
really think
yeah.
because we are so new that
Sure.
we've got to get those workshops going, and we've got to understand our bylaws. We've got to understand the
good
Rogers
idea.
Rule of order. There's a lot that we need to, as a group.
Yeah, I may be the only one that's still on the board that was here when we did that.
So
Oh, wow.
they've been
Yeah.
canceled because we're working with Christine to come up with good topics to go over and things like that. So it's just working with her. Staff, we are working on all these things in the background. I know the board doesn't often get to see, but we are anticipating a March work session. I'm meeting with Christine this month to discuss those things. So it's not that they have been canceled. We just haven't had them available just yet, because we're working through what we want to do throughout the year, because our goal is to have one at least once every month or every other month.
Yeah, because I know being a consultant, there is a cost factor to have her on, to come to these meetings.
Yes.
But when it comes to the bylaws, is it something that we as a board can go through the bylaws and educate ourselves, or do we need the consultant.
You
there.
can absolutely go through your own bylaws. The other thing that has been a concern, of course, because keep in mind, and again, these are newer board members, so please do not take this anyway, but we've also had lack of attendance at work sessions in the past. So that makes it a little bit difficult to try to get Christine here as well, because Patrice and Elizabeth and Carolina have been here at work sessions too. And again, this is not to say that you have not had the opportunity, because as you all have been on the board, we've not had a work session. But keep in mind too, the consultant does take that into effect of attendance at work sessions, and work sessions are at 5. So that's another thing that we always factor in. But you are free to read your bylaws. I know previously we talked about editing those bylaws, and as we do ordinance changes, land development code changes, these are all things that we're taking into consideration. Staff is working on all these priorities. We have historic preservation guidelines that will be coming in that specifically looked at our district only. It's done by an outside consultant. They're looking, and that's going to be a standard of that will be brought to you. Then that will be brought to city council. So then you'll have even more guidelines, and staff will have even more guidelines to look at those things. So we are working on these things. It's just taking a lot of time. This is something that we care about for the city, and we know that you care about. So we're taking that effort. So I do want to assure the board, it is being heard, it is being done. There's a lot of work in the background that is being completed.
What about Jack hosting a workshop for us and explaining what he already explained to
I
us?
did one
instead of-
within the
You
last
did.
12 months,
Mhm.
for those of you that
we
suffered
have a
through
regular
it.
one?
And we're happy, whether it's myself or Dan Manzares, we're happy to put on that workshop and go through some of the basics, the 1, 2, 3s, along with a review of the bylaws and so forth. So sure, happy to do it.
That I think would be most beneficial. And I
Sure,
agree with
yeah.
Ms. Patrice on that.
Yeah. My attendance at the workshops, I think, has been 100%.
Personally, I'm really grateful for this case because I think there's a lot of things that have happened just because people are pressed on time. You know, there's just not enough time to communicate super well, admittedly. Just I think everybody struggles with that. And I think this case definitely called us all to unity and to a form of reset. So I'm kind of grateful that we had to hash it out a little bit laboriously, but I think it definitely helped us see what the staff vision is, what our needs are as well, to feel like our position here has a value. You know?
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it gave us all comfort in knowing that we can ask those questions
Yeah.
and then also voice our thoughts, and then somebody else tag on to that, and it just keep going and keep going. So until we come to a resolution. But yeah, thank you for allowing us to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to have those conversations. huh?
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yep.
Okay.
I was going to ask you why you're still up here, but my idea of the requesting, I don't want to say required because I know that's just not possible all the time, but is that a possibility to add to the application if it's not already on the CRA application for the historical photos?
So the COA application, I just want to say, because we can't touch
Okay.
the CRA.
Yeah, sorry.
Anything
Yep.
for CRA, we cannot touch. The COA application, we can review that and look at that. We did update the application recently, and we are changing some processes. So we can have that, but it would be optional if it's not available. And we can do our due diligence, of course. I can have the consultant also look for those. However, just keep in mind, if there just happens to not be a photo, we wouldn't
Or
be able
even
to
let
provide.
the, if even
A
just
record.
letting them know that, hey, it might help your case some if you can show us some old photos, you know?
Yeah.
if-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or it might
Fisk,
hurt it.
Fisk
Yeah.
Funeral Home has a
That's
lot
a
of
great
photos.
idea.
Fisk,
Oh, yeah.
they have a ton of photos. Yeah.
Well, the Women's Club,
The Women's Museum. Yeah.
the Women's Museum. there's
You know, and to lend to what you were saying, Ms. Elizabeth, I think too, the other thing that would have been helpful today too would have been to see the numbers as well. Like, like when you were asking, did you guys get comparisons? And if that's the possibility, do you have them? Can you see? You know what I mean? Like it's coming to us and it's a picture of this.
Well, and I
Yeah.
think the other thing is because the garage was drawn into the decision, that it would have been great to have that tagged
Agreed.
onto this, because then we would have had something to look at and not just the metal. So,
We can look into including if there's any exterior work that has already been approved on a property. That's something that we can add into consideration, because I know one of the concerns was setting a precedence. And if you've set a precedence for a property,
Correct.
it should be more consistent. So we can start including if any other certificate of appropriateness approvals had some
Awesome.
impact, we can notate
Would be
that
great.
in
Awesome.
the staff report.
That would be great.
Great.
Yeah. And in a way to, if in case, the applicant to not make it so onerous and like printing a bunch of pictures that would state your case, maybe just including a link to, hey, I found these pictures on this link and it looks like it's a legit link, and just passing on the link, because I think we can here in the meeting, go through them by the very least. And if not, we can just click before in preparation for the meeting.
They would be included in your staff report because keep in mind, city management and city councils, their goal is to be more fiscally and paperless responsible. So we'll email those
Perfect.
staff reports to you if you would like those
Perfect.
printed. It is
Yeah.
up to the board to print them, but.
All right, any further comments from the board? All right, and just for information, our next meeting is scheduled for March 11th, Tuesday at 6 p.m. And I need a motion to adjourn. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Go ahead.
Motion to adjourn?
Second,
I second that motion.
All right,
all in favor?
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Do you need us to turn
Have
off
a
our
good night.
microphones?
Nice job.
No, I
Yep.
think they come
Jan,
around to
take
do
care.
all that, and then they,
Don't touch Jay's microphone.
Don't touch the button.
Jay will handle it.
Do we leave these here though, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
But these are ours.
Those are yours.
Yes.
Okay.
So I know sometimes, a little bit ago, somebody asked for
Lively tonight.